everyone, Caroline here. So today I'm back with a 10 card video and I am using this StudioLight paper collection, Say It with Flowers. I purchased this collection a while back and I thought it's time to pull it out and do some cards with it. So you can see this collection consists of 2 different paper blocks. Each of them has different colors. This one is more like, bluish, greenish, yellowish colors. There are unicolors, 3 unicolors, 3 embellished papers, and then 3 pattern papers. And then there's this block, which has more the pinkish and orangey coral colors. There's again 3 unicolors. Then you have pattern paper, 3 pattern papers, and also some decorated embellished papers. So with this collection they have a different block here which has all the die cuts. So instead of buying it in a bag, you get it kind of like as a block, and you just pull out or snip out the ones you like. And then they also had like A4 sized paper in this collection. I got it because in addition to this other, because I liked really the pattern paper and the pictures that were on this paper. And I also bought this one. I really love this backgrounds. And then they had like 12 by 12 pattern paper, which I also really liked. So I picked them up as well. So you can see this one is double because one side has this beautiful roses border, and then I wanted to have both sides. I bought a double, and then this one here has the cut up toppers, which I really liked, and I also liked the background, so I picked it up twice. And my last paper here is a different paper with different pictures on them, but this one you have to cut out yourself, and I picked this up as well. Now with this collection they also came out with this 4 stem sets that go with it, and I really like them because all those flowers were kind of separated, and I love these little clusters, the size of them. And what I really like with StudioLight is they give you on the back, they show you how you can color it. So if you have trouble with shading or anything, you can just use this as a reference. So that's it for all the materials. And now let's get started. Card 1. So for my first card, I chose a square format, and this is a 5 3/4 by 5 2/4 card. I cut out one of the papers from the block, the unicolors, and then one pattern paper, and I have this little die cut topper that I cut out, and a piece of craft paper, and I have 2 pieces of pattern paper. And I used my Designer's Choice Tonic Studio set to cut out 2 borders, and I also printed or stamped out a sentiment from a Ranger's Letter It stamp set, and I have a couple of die cuts here. Now I cut out my papers with the Tim Holtz Deckled Edge trimmer. I really like how this gives me an uneven border. I used my tattered rose and gave this paper a little distressed look, both the unicolor and this one here with the flowers. And then I roughed up the edge of my topper here, and I went around the walnut stain around this craft piece of paper. And then I pulled out this stamp from one of the stamp sets it has the same kind of leaves that were already on that little piece of paper that I cut out for my border, and I decided to add a few more leaves to it. So I used like this grapefruit color Versa chalk ink and just added a few more leaves to this piece, just to make it a little bit more even. Just that one leaf was weird, and I thought it might be nice to add some more. And I'm fiddling in a little bit because I'm just holding a piece of paper to make sure the leaves go only on that side with the pattern paper. Now I am assembling my card here. The first layer I'm gonna glue on flat with liquid glue. I cut it, this piece is a little bit shorter than my card to have a white border around it. Now my second layer I am adding with foam tape and lift it up. This gives me the nice base here, and then I'm using these two borders and I am gluing them together. To make it one piece, and then I'm adding a piece of foam tape behind it and add this on top for a nice lacy look. Then I'm using my die cut here, or my topper, and I add this to my craft piece here, and then I'm going around with my sponge and remove the white border from the flowers, and I'm adding a little bit of distress to that sentiment. And then I'm adding my topper here. I have foam tape on each side, and in the middle I just use liquid glue to make it even. And then I'm using foam tape and add those flowers to my card. Just a little cluster on the bottom right side. Then I use that little yellow flower to give it a little pop of yellow. And then I'm using my sentiment, and there was this little clip, and I thought it would be nice to add this to my sentiment. And then I'm add this to the top part with glue, and then also with foam tape to lift it up. Then I have those little teeny tiny flowery thingies, and I'm adding it behind. And I do the same with this flowers here. And then I'm adding this little piece, it's almost looking like a piece of washi tape, and another flower piece on top. And this is my cluster ready. And now for my final touch, as usual, I'm using my Nuvo drops. This one are the iridescent pink ones, and I also using these golden glitter ones. Oh no, actually I didn't use it for this card, just the iridescent one. Here's the finished card. Card 2. Okay, here is my second card. I used a piece of craft paper and made myself a card base for a slimline card. And then I cut some pattern paper to size and used this circle die and cut 3 circles, because in this die cuts there were like these 3 pieces of die cuts, and I have those 2 sentiments which are stamped out, and they come from this stamp set from Stampin' Up, and I stamped them out in dark brown. And here's my first layer, and that's a beautiful pink background I really like, and I add that first flat with liquid glue to my card base. And I cut it a little bit smaller, so you have a brown frame around it. And then I'm using my Distress ink in mint and a little sponge here. And I'm just going around this piece and also around the circles just to give it a little bit more dimension. And then I'm adding my thin foam tape and go around this piece because I want to lift this up off my card. And then I'm adding it to my card. And again, I cut it a little bit smaller so you get this double frame effect. And then I'm just using foam tape and I glue those circles into the card, into the circles of the card. And then I have those little pieces here, teeny tiny flower. I add this to the top part. I just stick it behind so it grows out of that circle. And then this teeny tiny bloom. And I'm going around with my sponge here and I'm just adding a distressed look to my sentiment, and I glue this right, the first one on top there for the first circle, and then I have this little bee that I add, and then I have the thinking of you between the second and the third, and then this third picture was kind of like a bride, but for some reason I didn't see it at first, so I was like, okay, that's weird with the bride on the bottom, so I just used a few more flowers and I just cover up that top part where you can see it's actually a bride, and you have just the focal point of the flowers. Now I'm adding a bunch of gold coast or honey, I think it's honey gold glitter drops to my card, and that's it. Here is the finished card. Card 3. Now for my third card, I created a slimline card base out of black cardstock, and a mini slimline is 3 by 6 inches. So I really like that format. Then I have a couple of die cuts, and I have the sentiment that I created by stamping out from this stamp set from Heidi Swap. I stamped it out and I embossed it with a white embossing powder on black cardstock. Now this is a very simple card. I'm just adding my first layer here, and this time I cut the height the same as my card base, but I left a little bit on the side with the black. And my second piece here is cut out of that big piece of pattern paper. I just wanted that motif or that image, and I cut it with my deckled edge so it has this uneven edge, and then also a little bit of ink on the side. And I'm adding this with foam tape, so you have this double effect again with the frames. I mean, it's only on the side. Then I using these flowers and I lift them up, the first one with foam tape, and I'm adding this other piece here that I cut out from the paper, and I add it behind, and then I'm at my sentiment with just some foam tape to the top, and I have this little piece here, and I'm adding this just flat behind the flowers. So this is a very small easy card and perfect to give as a thank you card to someone. Just some stickers and good to go. Card 4. Now this card I used the uni paper from the other block, and I used a die cut topper that has this matches the color with this turquoise color or a greenish color, and then I'm using this stamp this water stamped flowers from that one set, and I'm adding this to the background paper here from first layer, and I'm just stamping it on the side. And then I'm just using clear embossing powder. I just want it to be noticeable, but I don't want it to be like in focus. So I just melt that down with my heat gun here. And this would just give me a little something on that background paper. And I'm going around with that mint color again. And then I'm gluing it flat onto my card base here. And again, I cut it a little bit smaller because I wanted a white frame around my card. And then I'm going around also with the sponge on my topper piece here just to remove any white lines. And I'm gluing this flat, framing this on a piece of black cardstock, and then I'm cutting it to size. I'm using my trimmer here, and I really like the look of this, how nicely this is framed now. And then to make it a little bit stand up from that background, I'm adding a piece of pink, this pink piece of paper. And I'm putting it right in the middle because on the right side I want it to be a little lighter than on the left side. And I'm cutting it again the same size. So I have like this double frame, and I like how that stands up from the background. Then I'm using foam tape, and I just place this on my card, and I'm going more to the right so you can actually see a little bit of that flower border on the left side. And then again, I have this cluster of flowers, roses, that looked almost like the roses that are on the cake. So I thought it's nice to put that on there. And then I'm using to get a little bit more green with my flowers here. Those two pieces that I cut out from that paper. And add them to the bottom right. Now cut this little piece away here, and then I am stamping out my sentiment, and I'm using this other stamp set here, and I'm using the Let's Celebrate, and I'm just stamp this out on white cardstock with black ink. There we go. And then I cut this out, fussy cut this. And I also go around with my tea dye to just knock it down a little bit. It was kind of too white. And then I'm adding some stickles on my flowers and some Nuvo drops here. And here's the finished card. Card 5. Now for this card and for my next card, I'm creating my own die cuts here. I'm stamping out all the flowers from the stamp sets, and I'm using like this brown VersaFine. And then for my first layer, I'm using my Cosmic Shimmer powders, and I'm just going around. I'm just don't really thinking about shading or anything. I'm just really slapping on colors, different colors on the different leaves, and just to get some color going. And then when it's done and dry, I fussy cut them all out, and then I'm adding a little bit more detail, watercolors, with my traditional watercolors. And you cannot see this on camera, but this is all so nice and shimmery from the Cosmic Shimmer. I really love this effect. And then I also have this Posca marker, this white Posca marker, so I will add some white details to my flowers when I'm done and this is all dry. Here you can see how I'm adding a little bit more colors on top to give it now a little bit more dimension, but again, I'm not really going for exact shading here, I'm just going for color. So here are all my pieces now. I added some white and I fussy cut them all out. Now I have this card base that I created again for a mini slimline card, and I stamped out this sentiment that comes from a Danny Boy's Club text stempel set Herzlichen Glückwunsch, which means congratulations. And then I have this background stamp which I really love. It's one of my favorite text pattern background stamps, and it's from Spellbinders. And I'm just adding with tea dye some pattern onto my background. Here we go, and a little bit on top. And I love this stamp because it doesn't really matter in what direction you're going. So I really love that. Just gives a nice texture. Then I'm going around and I rough up the edge here. And then for a little bit more interest, I'm using again this border stamp, which is kind of my favorite stamps from this collection. And I'm adding with a Kaivel vintage photo, I'm adding a little strip of flowers on the bottom and a little bit of flowers on the top. And then I am going around my sentiment as well. And I messed this a little bit up because it has a little bit of that text on it. So I'm just going ahead and add a little bit more text. So it looks like it's intentionally done. You can see that here. And then I'm adding my background paper here to my card base. And making sure it's all nice and even. And then I have these two flowers and I'm adding them like crisscross onto my card base here. And I'm using foam tape to adhere it. You can see first I do the right and then the left side. And I let it go over the edge a little bit because I anyway have to create my, my envelopes for this. So I don't mind if it's a little bit going over the edge. So I'm just adjusting my envelope if I'm sending this away. Now I'm using those leaves here and there, and that's what I really love about those stamp sets, is that you have those single leaves and single flowers. It's also nice to have a complete set of flowers, but I love it when I can just create my own clusters of flowers and layer them, and so this has really pulled me in to buy this or these stamp sets. So I'm adding my sentiment, and then I have this little flower here that looks like almost like a lavender, but I made it all pink looking, but that's fine. So I'm adding this there. I'm not going for precision here. And I have those little leaves that can go here and there, little flowers. And then I'm adding on the right side a little bit to balance it out. And I really like how you can still see this flower stamp below and also a little bit of that text stamp. Now for a final touch here, I'm adding again my Nuvo drops. And here is my finished card. Card 6. Now for this card, I'm going again with a square card base, and I cut out this pattern paper, which I really love. I love this grungy, papery look to it. I stamped out this sentiment from that stamp set, and I went around with my sponge. And then I have this circle left from my second card, and I'm going to use this for this card. And I have this sentiment friend, which comes from a die set from Sassy Stamps. And I have all these flowers again, which I will use to create a wreath. Now I'm starting out with my circle here, and I distressed it with the mint color again, and then I'm using again my text stamp and add a little bit more texture to it. And I also add more ink to add to my background paper, but this time I'm using, instead of tea dye, I'm using this mint color, which is kind of the same color that's on the paper. It's a little darker, but I think it looks awesome. Then I'm adding a little bit more to the other side. And here we go. Then I'm using my walnut stain, and I go around here, around the edge, to give this a little bit more dimension when I set it on the card. And then I'm also add some white splatters. It's kind of like I want to pick up this white that I used on the flowers, so I bring this into my background as well. Now I'm adding it to my card base here, and I'm just using liquid glue, and I make sure it's nice and flat. And then I'm adding my circle here in the middle, and I also use just liquid glue, and this will help me to be even. I use it almost like a guide. And then I'm using first those two clusters and then those flowers to create my leaf and my wreath, and then I'm using all these little flowers and I add them here and there. And I really like to work like this. I find this so relaxing to just create wreaths and flower clusters like this, with the little dimension with foam tape, and then again beneath with liquid glue. It's almost like creating with real flowers, wreaths. So I really enjoy doing this. Now I have my sentiment here, and I'm adding it on the bottom there, making sure it's secured with glue and a piece of foam tape on the right side. And then I'm adding my cutout piece here, my die cut piece friend, and glue this in the middle. And then I'm adding my Nuvo drops all around, and a little bit of Nuvo glaze in the middle of my flowers for more dimension. And here is the finished card. Card 7. Now for this card I again chose a slimline card. I thought this die cut, which is this huge window, would be awesome on a slimline card, and I am going around with the mint color just to get rid of this white color on that window, on the shutters. And then I'm using the walnut stain, and I'm adding another layer around this, and this will bring out, makes it look almost like a vintage old window. When I'm done with this, I'm using my background here and I'm roughing up the edge. And I'm going around this time with tea dye. And I also do this with this other piece that I cut out on the other piece of pattern paper. It's the same paper, just I cut the other side out, fussy cut this out. Then I'm adding my shadow, my window shutters, and then on top with foam tape, I'm adding this other piece of flowers. And this will look like the flowers kind of like grow on top of my window, in front of my window actually. I'm cutting away the excess there. And then I'm gluing this whole piece to my card base. Then I have those pieces here, those die cut pieces, which I thought are so cute. It's like a notebook, and then there's this folder, file folder with some stuff in it. So I'm placing it below the flowers, and then even below that, there's a notebook with that little flower on it. Or it's kind of a journal. It has all those clips and bookmarks. And then I'm adding a little piece of this vase with flowers behind it. And glue this all in place. And then I'm adding these sentiments that come from the die set, from that block. And I thought it's so cute it would be cute just to add them to the notebook. And to the file folder. Now to balance out this card, because there's a lot going on the bottom, I decided to add also some flowers to the top. And you will see that in a minute. I'm adding also another flower there. I didn't like that open spot. So I'm added that flower, and I also add a period to the with love and the forever because the bloom had one. And then I'm adding another flower on top just to even this out. I balance the card. There we go. And a little teeny tiny one right on top. And there it is. So I just add some Nuvo drops. And here's the finished card. Card 8. Now for this card I'm using the pattern paper piece of craft, and I cut out another piece of pattern paper. I'm adding my first layer here, and this is a huge 6x6 card base, and I have this piece with the flowers which I really like, and I have also this piece, topper piece, that spells out love with some floral pieces. And then I have those flowers here, and I'm removing the white edge. And I'm starting out by gluing this other piece on pattern paper to a piece of craft paper. Again, I cut all the pieces out with my deckled edge trimmer. And then I'm placing this piece with foam tape on top, and this gives me a nice base. And then I'm adding my love topper here to the right top. And I'm sticking in that little flower below because I wanted to balance out the design by adding a little flower also on the top. And then I have those 2 flowers here that I'm adding, and this with foam tape. And I also have this little bee that I'm adding on top. Now I'm adding some stickles, glitter to my flowers and all around. And I'm adding some nouveau glaze to that little bee. And there you have it. This is the finished card. Card 9. So for this card, this is a standard A2 card that I created myself, card base, and then I have this sentiments that comes from a Ranger Letter 8 stamp set, and again I stamped it out and then embossed it with white embossing powder. And then there were this again this window shutters, and this time I cut this into 2 pieces, and I'm going around and with my brown walnut stain, and then I'm just gluing on the side. I'm gluing it to another piece of pattern paper, and I'm doing the same with the other piece. And you're still able to open this, but I'm adding a little piece of foam tape behind, so that gives the illusion that that window is kind of not completely closed. And then I'm just cutting my the excess away, and I'm going around to my background piece here, and I do the same with this other piece. And I'm also going around some flowers that I picked out for this. And then I'm assembling my card here. I'm adding my first layer just flat. And then I'm adding my second layer. And this layer I'm lifting up with foam tape. And then I'm adding my window here. And I'm just adding this flat, since I used already the foam tape inside. And I love this look that it's almost like an open window, not completely closed. And then I have this cute piece, and I really love this for a baby card. So I'm adding a side on top of the window, and I'm adding a few flowers on the bottom. And I add this pink one and also this yellow one for a little bit more color. And then I'm adding my sentiment with some foam tape, and I'm adding it right on top of the flowers. And I add a little bit of nouveau glaze to the pacifier here, and of course some nouveau drops. And here's the finished card. Card 10. So here is the last card for this video, and unfortunately my camera went a little bit too far in zooming, so I'm not able to show to work on this whole card. But anyway, I'm making the best out of it. So here I choose a sentiment from a Love from Lizzie stamp set, and then I'm using this circle grungy stamp and add a little bit grunginess to that circle, just to the outside, some texture, and I'm going around with my sponge again, and then I'm using this Hugs and Kisses sentiment. I'm add this with brown ink to the circle. And then I did this double, so you really have a crisp stamp print. And then I'm adding also from this is another StudioLight stamp set. It has this textured text background, and I'm adding this to that stripe here that I have of paper. And I rough this up, and I also go around the top and the bottom with my blending tool here. And then I am assembling my card. I use this background pattern paper and rough up the edge, and also inked it up outside with the mint color. And now I'm doing the other piece, and this piece is also cut out from the pattern paper. I really love how romantic this whole pictures with the locks and the flowers look. So and that was perfect for a slimline card. So I'm adding first my first layer, and then I'm adding the second one again with some foam tape on top. And then I'm cutting my piece here to size and add some foam tape right and left, and add this right in the middle. So I have only 3 locks showing. And then I have these 2 die cuts pieces here, and I'm glue them together. And I'm sticking my sentiment slightly under that first one. And then I'm adding this with glue. On top. And I'm adding a little bit more liquid glue so it all stays nice in place. And then I have a few of those glitter drops left, and I thought the color matched perfectly. And I add also some Nouveau Glaze to those heart-shaped locks. And here is the finished card. Now here are again all still shots of all the cards I created. I hope you like this video and you like the process, and as usual feel free to feel inspired and pull out some stuff you have in your stash. I think a lot of techniques you can just use with any stuff you have, and I hope you got just some ideas. I'm saying bye for now, and I hope I see you in my next video. Until then, bye.